Today is all about Mr. Terrific, one of the most brilliant minds in the DC universe, and an underrated DC hero who's finally stepping into the cinematic spotlight. What's up, my comic comrades? With James Gunn's Superman movie in theaters, we're continuing our deep dives into the characters that made the biggest impressions on the big screen. And one of them is definitely Michael Holt, aka Mr. Terrific. He's so freaking good in the movie. Now, we already gave you his full origin story a while back, how grief nearly broke him, how an encounter with the Spectre reshaped his path, and how he took on the mantle of the original Mr. Terrific, Terry Sloan. But today we're giving Mr. Terrific the spotlight he deserves with a full deep dive into his comic book history. That means we're covering Holt's evolution across the DC universe, his time with the Justice Society, his leadership in Checkmate, his multiverse-hopping adventures with the Terrifics, and how he became a key player in the modern age of heroes. So if you think Mr. Terrific is just a background character in the comics or someone you only half remember from a CW episode, lock in. Because this is the full history of one of DC's most underrated and absolutely essential heroes. We're also going to randomly throw in a couple of Mr. Terrific trivia questions throughout the episode, and the first of you to give us the correct answers to both in the comments will get a variant shirt of your choice. So be on the lookout for those. Now let's dive in. Okay, first off, Michael Holt didn't start out trying to be a superhero. He was just a man who lost his family and couldn't see a way forward. And one night he found himself on a bridge ready to jump, which is exactly where we first meet him in the Spectre 54 back in 1997. To be clear, the original Mr. Terrific was Terry Sloan, and we covered more detail on him in our Origin of Mr. Terrific episode, which you could find right here. But Michael Holt has held the mantle since 1997, and that's also who they're running with in the DCU. So that's who we're focusing on. Anyway, we find Michael standing alone staring down at the train tracks, and he's holding a photo of his wife who had just died in a car crash, along with their unborn child. It's really tragic and heart-wrenching. He had it all on paper: Olympic gold medalist, a genius with a stack of PhDs, and a millionaire businessman. But in that moment, none of it mattered. He was done. Before he could do anything though, a couple of thugs showed up to rob him, which is a weird moment by itself. He's literally about to end his life, and they're trying to mug him. But then something even stranger happens. The Spectre shows up. Now, if you're new to this side of DC, the Spectre isn't just another cape. He's basically God's vengeance wrapped in a ghost. So he takes out the thugs instantly, then turns to Holt, and instead of just saving his life and flying off, he starts talking. The Spectre tells Michael about another man, someone a lot like him. His name, you guessed it, Terry Sloan, the original Mr. Terrific. Sloan had everything too: brains, money, athletic talent, and like Michael, he once stood on a bridge thinking about ending it all. But instead, Sloan made a choice. He put on a costume, called himself Mr. Terrific, and started fighting street-level crime to show kids that there was a better path than gang life. His motto was fair play. Simple, clear, and serious. The Spectre goes on to tell Holt how Sloan eventually died, and it wasn't a peaceful retirement. It was murder. And the world didn't just lose a hero, it lost someone who made a real impact on the streets. Someone who mattered in ways Superman and Batman didn't. But this obviously wasn't just a history lesson. The Spectre was giving Michael a shot at something more. He tells him, no one can replace your wife, and no one can replace Sloan. But their absence left a hole, and maybe Michael could be the one to fill it. At first, Holt isn't convinced. He doesn't buy into gods, magic, spirits, or fate, which is hilarious because he's staring one in the face. Regardless, something about what the Spectre said cut through all of that. So Michael goes back home and he makes a decision. He designs a jacket with fair play stitched across the back. He builds what would become his signature tech, the T-Spheres. And then he walks straight up to a group of kids on the block who think they run the place. They laugh in his face and mock him and even pull guns on him, but he still stands there. Then when things go south, he just handles it. Not with magic, not with alien powers, just training, brains, and a refusal to back down. And that's when the Spectre shows up again, ready to deal out punishment. But this time, Michael stops him. He tells him to back off and even agrees to take personal responsibility for those kids, telling the Spectre that if there's even a chance they can change, they deserve that shot. And he means it, which is exactly what the Spectre wanted to see. This was Michael Holt's test to prove if he really had what it took to take on the mantle of Mr. Terrific. And he passed. From that point forward, Michael Holt becomes the new Mr. Terrific. Not because the universe picked him, not because of destiny, but because he chose to be the kind of man who could carry that name and the responsibilities that came with it, which is a dope and meaningful origin story for a hero. And speaking of awesome, are you going to San Diego Comic-Con this year? Well, so is CGC, today's sponsor. If you collect comics, you know who CGC is. Their comic grading, signature authentication, and pressing are well known. And this year, they've got something extra brewing at their San Diego Comic-Con booths. If you submit any collectible for grading at either of CGC's booths, 901 or 4350 15, you'll score CGC's exclusive Superman 680 variant illustrated by Dan Mora. These books are extremely limited with only 3,000 printed, and you'll receive the book raw. But you can just add it to your submission for grading right there at the booth. And when you get it back, your graded book will also say that it's a 1 of 3,000 book, which of course increases its value and collectability. Also, in case you haven't heard, CGC recently announced DC custom labels for comics, cards, and coins. And with that new partnership, CGC has designed a crypto custom label that can be added to the order. It's pretty great. This year, CGC is also celebrating its 25th anniversary, and as part of that celebration, CGC is offering $25 off any paid membership when you use our code VariantCGC25. Paid memberships offer a variety of perks like discounts on grading and even instant credit, so you most definitely want to check that out if you're into collecting like we are. Again, to snag one of those Dan Mora variant covers, you could submit your collectible for grading to CGC at either booth 901 or 4315 at San Diego Comic-Con. There are only 3,000 printed, so you'll want to get there early. Then to grab a membership or learn more about CGC and their offerings, visit cgcgrading.com and use our code for that discount, or click our link in the description. Okay, after Michael Holt's first steps back into the world, he didn't just stop at the jacket and the motto. He went all in. He took the name Mr. Terrific not as a gimmick, but as a mission, and he built everything around that. First came the look. The Fair Play jacket wasn't just for style, it was a direct tribute to Terry Sloan, the first Mr. Terrific. It symbolized something: fairness, justice, the idea that intelligence and ethics should go hand in hand, and Holt wore it like armor. But what really set him apart was the T-spheres. Michael created these floating orbs of tech that could do just about anything: surveillance, translation, holograms, offensive strikes, hacking into systems, you name it. And the coolest part? They respond to his thoughts. He doesn't need to shout commands or push buttons. They're linked to him mentally like an extension of his mind. On top of that, he developed technology that makes him invisible to all forms of electronic detection. No cameras, no radars, no sensors can spot him. It's a subtle power, but one that fits him perfectly. Quiet, smart, and strategic. But all the gadgets in the world don't mean much if you don't stand for something. Holt wasn't out to be famous. He wasn't trying to join a team or make headlines. He just wanted to do good and do it the right way. Still, it wasn't long before the rest of the superhero community started noticing. You don't stay off the radar for long when you're one of the smartest people on the planet and your tech rivals Batman's. And that's when the Justice Society of America came knocking. So let's move into story arcs and see how his story evolved from here. But first, here's trivia question number 1 for you. Who does Michael Holt rank as the 2 smartest individuals in the DC universe ahead of himself? There's 1 question down, 1 more to go, so be ready to drop those answers in the comments. Now, Michael Holt officially joined the Justice Society of America during the early 2000s run of JSA, written by Jeff Johns and David Goyer. And right away, he wasn't just part of the team, he was leading it. He rose through the ranks fast and eventually became the chairman of the JSA. That might not sound like a big deal. Characters like Hawkman, Dr. Midnight, and Jay Garrick, that's saying something. They respected Holt not just for his brain, but for his judgment, integrity, and ability to lead. One of his most important arcs came early in his JSA run, Injustice Be Done, where the team goes up against the modern versions of the Injustice Society. The arc doesn't just show off Terrific's tactical mind, it puts him in the position of having to make hard calls under pressure while balancing the lives of young recruits and legacy heroes alike. Throughout the 2000s, he became the face of the JSA's next generation approach, mentoring newer heroes like Stargirl and Cyclone while still holding his own with the old guard. Then when the team started rebuilding after Infinite Crisis and JSA Volume 3, Holt was front and center again, helping shape what the JSA stood for in a changing world. But Mr. Terrific wasn't just tied to one team. Later on, he joined the Justice League in a more advisory role, particularly when tech or science were involved. And one of his most interesting affiliations came in Checkmate, where he served as the White King. Holt's leadership and moral clarity were key as he operated in an espionage world filled with great decisions. Then in 2018, Mr. Terrific got something he hadn't had in a while: a leading role in a brand new series called The Terrifics. This was DC's answer to the idea of a science adventure team, similar to Marvel's Fantastic Four, but with a distinct twist. Holt teamed up with Plastic Man, Metamorpho, and Phantom Girl, 3 characters who were all dealing with strange changes in their lives. The setup: they were pulled together by a shared accident involving dark multiverse energy and technology linked to the villain Tom Strong. And once bonded, they couldn't stray far from each other without causing physical pain. It was weird, it was sci-fi, and it gave Holt the chance to step out of the usual team leadership roles and into something more experimental. He wasn't just managing the team dynamics or mentoring rookies, he was doing deep multiverse exploration, dealing with anomalies, alternate Earths, time loops, and more. The series leaned hard into Holt's strengths, his intellect, his curiosity, and his calm under pressure. The chemistry with the other characters were surprisingly strong as well. He was the no-nonsense brain trying to keep everything grounded while surrounded by chaos, whether that meant Plastic Man's randomness or Metamorpho's inner turmoil. turmoil. The Terrifics ran for over 30 issues, giving Holt one of the longest sustained runs as a lead in his comic history. It also helped cement his place as more than just the smart guy on the team. He became a problem solver on a cosmic level. However, most recently, DC launched Mr. Terrific Year 1 in 2024, a 6-issue miniseries written by Varian Johnson with art by Stacey Lee. It's a modern retelling of Michael Holt's origin that adds more emotional weight and depth to the character than ever before. This isn't just a beat-for-beat recap, it's a character-driven story that drives deeper into his family life, especially his bond with his older brother Jeffrey, and the mental pressure Michael put on himself long before becoming Mr. Terrific. The series explores the trauma following the loss of his wife Paula and their unborn child, but it does so with more introspection and realism. We see Holt's self-doubt, his isolation, and his initial resistance to taking on the Terrific identity. We also see how the fair play model begins to form organically through conversations, memory, and the influence of those around him. Even his early use of technology and T-sphere prototypes is rooted in human connection, not just intellectual curiosity. So far, this version hasn't changed who Michael is, it just seems to be rounding him out. It lets us sit in the silence with him, it lets us see the moments between the milestones, and it's shaping up to be one of the most definitive takes on Mr. Terrific to date. But that leads us to powers and abilities. As I mentioned earlier, Michael Holt is regularly called the third smartest man in the DC universe, and that's not a title they hand out lightly. The guy has 14 PhDs ranging from engineering and physics to applied mathematics and theoretical physics. He's fluent in multiple languages, an Olympic gold medalist in the decathlon, and a certified genius in basically every technical field you can think of. But it's not just about brain power, it's how he uses it. His signature invention, the T-sphere, is a floating orb of pure science fiction designed entirely by him. Each one is capable of surveillance and hacking into any digital system, projection of holograms and hard light constructs, acting as a weapon or defense shield, and translation, flight, and even environmental scanning. They're basically a Swiss Army knife of superhero tech, and he usually has 6 or more floating around him at any given time. What's even cooler is that they're linked to his thoughts. No vocal commands or gadgets, just sheer mental command. And then there's his invisibility to technology, which gets overlooked sometimes. To put it simply, cameras, motion detectors, satellites, even Superman's Kryptonian tech, none of it can register Mr. Terrific when he doesn't want to be seen. It's not magic, it's science. He designed a quantum cloaking system that erases his presence from all machines. That means in a world dominated by surveillance and tracking, Holt moves like a ghost. On top of all that, he's trained in multiple forms of hand-to-hand combat. He's not just smart, he's physically elite. That Olympic decathlon medal wasn't for show. He can hold his own in a fight, whether it's against thugs in the streets or metahumans on the battlefield. But the real edge, it's the way he puts it all together. Holt doesn't just invent gadgets and punch bad guys, he thinks 10 steps ahead. He can out-strategize entire teams. In some arcs, he's the one running logistics for missions that involve time travel, alien invasions, or multiverse incursions, and he does it calmly with zero ego. He's not the guy who shows off. He's the one who makes sure that the mission doesn't fall apart. And now that we have a good sense of his power set, let's take a look at some of the enemies he's most needed to use them against. Now, Mr. Terrific doesn't have a long list of recurring solo villains like Batman or Flash, but he's had more than his share of major conflicts, some personal, some ideological, and some deeply rooted in the teams he's worked with. One of his most important early enemies ties directly back to his origin, the Spirit King. This villain is actually more closely connected to Terry Sloan, the original Mr. Terrific, but his presence lingers in Michael Holt's story. The Spirit King is a body-snatching villain who murdered Terry and used the body of Jay Garrick, the original Flash, to escape. His return during Holt's early story arc sets the tone. Holt isn't just picking up a name, he's stepping into a legacy with real enemies. Then there's Prometheus, one of DC's most underrated and dangerous villains. Think of him as the anti-Batman, trained from childhood to kill heroes, using strategy and advanced tech. When Prometheus shows up, it's not a punch-out fight. It's a battle of minds and tactics. Holt has clashed with him during key JLA and JSA events, and while they're not traditional arch enemies, the intellectual showdown between the two is always high stakes. Another important recurring antagonist is Vandal Savage. He's an immortal conqueror who's been manipulating the course of human history for centuries. Holt has gone up against him both through Checkmate and the JSA. Their battles aren't just physical, they're philosophical. Savage is all about control through power. Holt believes in lifting others up through knowledge and fairness, and those opposing worldviews make for a great dynamic. Within his own teams, Mr. Terrific also clashes with other heroes, not in a soap opera drama way, but in strategic disagreements. For example, while working in Checkmate, Holt constantly butted heads with Amanda Waller. She's all about results no matter the cost. Holt pushed back, drawing a hard line when operations crossed ethical boundaries. Those tensions made for some of the best moments in the Checkmate run. And even inside the JSA, he's had tough calls to make, especially when younger heroes were involved. He's often had to play the mentor, the strategist, and the moral compass all at once, and not every teammate agreed with his decisions. The point is, Mr. Terrific's biggest conflicts aren't always with villains looking to blow up the world. They're with systems, ideologies, and people who want to solve problems in ways he can't morally support. That's what makes him interesting. His villains aren't always evil, sometimes they're just wrong, and he's the one smart enough to prove it. And speaking of being smart enough, here's your second Mr. Terrific trivia question. In the New 52 Continuity solo series, what extraordinary event transports Michael Holt to a parallel world? Alright, drop those answers down in the comments, and good luck to you. Now, Mr. Terrific might not be as instantly recognizable as Batman or the Flash, but his influence in the DC universe runs deep, especially when it comes to leadership and grounded heroism. For starters, he's one of the few black superheroes in DC who isn't tied to legacy in the traditional sense. He didn't inherit powers or a suit from someone he knew. He took up the Mr. Terrific name by choice after learning about Terry Sloan and deciding to carry that mission forward. That choice matters because it tells you who he is more than anything. Holt's story is about agency, grief, recovery, and using knowledge as power. He's the kind of character who inspires, not just because he's smart, but because he chooses to apply that intelligence to help people. In a universe full of flashy powers and over-the-top fights, Mr. Terrific reminds us that leadership, empathy, and clarity of thought are superpowers too. His time with the JSA helped shape the modern version of the team. His role in Checkmate showed he could stand toe-to-toe with Amanda Waller, and the Terrifics proved he could hold down an entire title without relying on a traditional hero formula. Plus, in terms of representation, he fills a unique space. He's a brilliant black scientist, a tactician, and a moral voice in the room. And the fact that he's one of the first to be introduced into the DCU means a new generation of fans are going to get introduced to someone who's been quietly holding it down in DC Comics for over 2 decades. His impact might not always be loud, but it's consistent and lasting. But you know we wouldn't leave you without some solid Mr. Terrific reading recommendations. If you're looking to check out Mr. Terrific's best moments for yourself, here are a few places to start. The Spectre Volume 3, Issue 54, it's his first appearance and sets up everything you need to know. Then we have JSA Volume 2, especially Issue 16 through the early 40s, where Holt really comes into his own. From there, we suggest the Checkmate series that ran from 2006 to 2008, especially if you're a fan of political intrigue and ethical gray areas. Holt's leadership as White King is a standout. Then there's the Terrifics, which ran from 2018 to 2021. It's his longest solo spotlight with sci-fi, team dynamics, and multiverse shenanigans all rolled into one. And of course, you need to check out the ongoing Mr. Terrific Year 1, the current 6-issue miniseries reimagining his origin with more depth and modern context. So there you have it, Michael Holt, Mr. Terrific, a hero born out of grief, shaped by intellect, and driven by a deep sense of responsibility. He doesn't have heat vision or a magic ring. He doesn't need to. He's a man who stared into the darkest part of his life and came out stronger, not just for himself, but for the people around him. Whether he's mentoring future heroes, leading covert missions, or exploring the edge of the multiverse, Mr. Terrific stays true to his motto, fair play. Now we want to hear from you. What's your favorite Mr. Terrific moment? And did you like the way he was introduced in the Superman movie? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to put your answers for the trivia questions down in the comments for a chance to win a variant shirt. Also, if you learned something new, hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around for more variant deep dives like this one. Other than that, we'll see you next time when we talk about all things comics.